Howdy folks, it's Matthew, your friendly neighborhood technician, making you an update video on the 2001 Oldsmobile Intrigue with the 3.5 liter twin cam V6. Now I'm going to throw in some extra things that I haven't thrown in before on this video. First of all, this car has given me all kinds of problems with its cooling system. I replaced the water pump, I replaced the thermostat, and I even replaced the cooling tank. And the vehicle likes to overheat at low RPMs. That's pretty important that I say that the vehicle likes to overheat at low RPMs. Again, new water pump, new thermostat, new coolant tank. Vehicle overheats. So, one of the reasons why I will get into, what I want to do first is I want to show you how it overheats. Okay, so right now here we are. The vehicle's already starting to run warm. Now some of you are going to watch this vehicle run hot. It's not going to damage anything. It's not going to hurt anything. It's only when it gets up into here and you get the red light that comes on. There's a light down here. It's only when it gets up into here and stays here is when you're looking at causing any damage. Other than that, the vehicle can run warm all day long. So I've got my computer hooked up so I know exactly what the temperature is, and it's already running a little warm. It's running at 208. It's about to go up to 210 degrees. It'll get on up to 220, 230. Okay, so there we go. Now we're going to stay at 210. Yep, there we go, 212. Now it's going to fluctuate between 210 and 212 degrees. So I'm going to wait for it to get up to about 220 degrees, and I'm going to show you what I do to get it to cool off. Alright, and as you can see, the longer we sit here, we're approaching that middle mark now. We really should not be approaching that middle mark if everything was working alright. Our temperature is now fluctuating between 214 and 216 degrees. Come on, camera, give us good. There we go. And now it's staying steady at 216. It'll go up to as hot as 220. The operating temperature for this is about 195 to about 210. That's the proper operating temperature. So we're already over operating temperature. What gives? We've got a new water pump, a brand new thermostat, brand new coolant tank, system flush, new coolant, yet we're overheating at idle. Alright, and there you go. You can see we're now past the halfway mark. It's starting to run warm. Okay, now I'm going to bring it up to 2,000 RPMs. I might even bring it up to 2,500 RPMs and watch what starts to happen once I run it at high RPMs. See, the temperature is beginning to drop. I'm actually going to approach 3,000 RPMs. Right now we're at about 2,800 RPMs, and look at that, the temperature's dropping. It's pretty much within range of spec now, okay? Look at that, temperature drops. Same thing on here. Temperature drops. I'm running close to 3,000 RPMs though, right? 205. Now, let's go back down to low RPMs. Let's go back down to idle and see what happens. There it goes. It's starting to go back up again. Watch me run it at high RPMs again. Let's see what happens. Bet you I get it to come back down. And there you go. Starts to cool off. Okay, so this is a lot of stress on this engine. I'm not going to put it through it too much. So as you can see, when I'm at low RPMs with a new thermostat, a new water pump, a new coolant reservoir, all new coolant throughout the system, flushed and burped, I overheat at idle. When I bring it up to anything over 2,000 in RPMs, the system then works correctly. I'm almost out of gas. I'm going to have to take this car and get some new gas. So you get the idea. High RPMs, coolant system works correctly. Low RPMs, vehicle begins to overheat. All right, I'm going to pause it here, and I'm going to explain to you what I found because it's a little bit complicated. Okay, so why am I overheating at low RPMs? Why, when I bring the RPMs up, when I run the engine, do I stop overheating? Why? Why is that going on after I put in a brand new water pump? You can see it there. A brand new thermostat and a brand new coolant reservoir. Well, first of all, let's look at something. This, as much as beautiful as it is, come to find out, is not your everyday Oldsmobile engine. First of all, as you can see, and I just didn't put two and two together on this. I mean, I understand a reverse flow coolant system is when you have your thermostat down towards the bottom of the engine and the coolant goes in from the lower radiator hose, goes into the bottom of the engine, and it comes out the top, okay? That's a reverse flow system. What has reverse flow systems on it? Well, I'm going to pause it. Remember how this engine looks. I want to show you another engine out of a GM vehicle. Okay, so what are we looking at here? This, as you can see from the emblem, is a Cadillac engine. Notice it says Northstar 32 valve V8, made exclusively for Cadillac by General Motors. All right, there are a ton of similarities with this engine compared to the Oldsmobile engine. Now then, notice this engine looks very similar. Power steering pump is in the same place. It looks very similar, only this doesn't say Cadillac, made exclusively for Cadillac by General Motors. This one just says 3.5 liter twin cam V6. All right, now then, what's the catch? Right here. GLS. Now, I probably should have flagged this before. I didn't. This is a nice ride. It's got leather seats. It's got a bunch of bells and whistles on it. All the good stuff. GLS stands for Grand Luxury Sport Sedan. This is the top dollar of the Oldsmobile Intrigue, and because it is the top dollar of the 2001 Oldsmobile Intrigue, GM put a Northstar 3.5 liter Cadillac engine. Yes, this is, what's the best way to say it? The poor man's luxury vehicle, and it has a beautiful Cadillac Northstar engine in it. Because it is a Cadillac Northstar engine, the cooling system works just a little bit different on it than your average General Motors Oldsmobile engine. And some of the flags we have is the fact that it's a reverse coolant engine. Now then, it doesn't matter what you put on here. You absolutely cannot go to O'Reilly's, you cannot go to Napa, you cannot go to AutoZone and buy one of their nice new water pumps and buy one of their nice new thermostats and install it and expect it to work. There are some slight differences in the aftermarket parts versus the actual GM made dealership only parts for this engine. So no matter what, there is no cheap way of fixing this engine if anything ever happens to it, and that goes for the water pump and the thermostat as well. Now, because it's a reverse flow system, the thermostat actually acts more like a pressure valve, okay? It still opens and closes at a certain temperature, but it also relies on the pressure created by the water pump spinning and churning in order to open all the way. And bottom line is, there's just some slight differences in the impeller, There's some slight differences in the manufacturing process between GM and the aftermarket companies. And bottom line is, this water pump, brand new or not, does not create enough pressure to push that thermostat all the way open like it is supposed to be and cool the system. It also has a very special bleeding procedure, which requires somebody to cut this top line, install an aftermarket bleeder valve, install a water hose, disconnect this line, and run water through the system, pressurized water through the system, until water comes out of here. Once you have a complete flow of water coming out of the top of this side of the engine, you then begin to add pure 100% antifreeze, which would be Dexcool, to the reservoir, and you wait until you see it coming out of here. That's how you know it's mixed right. That is the only way to bleed this system out accordingly. And in order to even do that, you absolutely have to have a GM water pump, which means you have to go to a Cadillac dealership and order the water pump for this engine, for this vehicle. So what does that mean for me? Well, that means I just did a job, and now it's time for me to eat that job, because I need to pull this water pump, even though it's brand new, back off. I need to pull this thermostat back off, and I need to go to Cadillac or GM, and I need to buy their thermostat and their water pump. The difference in price between an aftermarket brand new O'Reilly's water pump and one that comes straight from the GM dealership is pretty expensive. So unfortunately, this job is going to have to sit here for another 2 or 3 days, because I've already went ahead and bought the water pump. I've already went ahead and bought the thermostat. It was a difference of about $150, and I went ahead and ordered the valve that I need to install on that hose right there in order to properly bleed the system. Because it's a reverse pressure, reverse flow system, the reason why I'm overheating at low idle is because, bottom line is, the aftermarket water pump and the aftermarket thermostat are not allowing enough coolant through the system to keep the engine cold. When I bring the RPMs up, when I rev the engine up to 2,500 RPMs, well, that causes that water pump to spin that much more faster. At that point, the high RPMs is building the pressure with the water pump that it needs to push the coolant through the thermostat. So there you go, folks. I will go ahead and make a final video on this when I install the GM provided water pump and thermostat, and then I'll go ahead and show you the bleed out process on this, because I've noticed as I was doing research, the information that I found out I actually got from another shop. I'm a member of the Independent Automotive Technicians Network. I got on the network, asked a few other shops, have you ran into this problem? And let me tell you, there were some shops that spent as much as 40 plus hours trying to bleed this engine out after doing a simple water pump replacement, only to find out that, hey, this isn't a Oldsmobile engine. This is a Cadillac engine. You have to treat it like a Cadillac engine. You got to buy GM Cadillac parts for it. You cannot go aftermarket. So this is a pretty expensive engine if anything goes wrong with it, because there just is no cheap way around fixing it. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, some of you guys like to follow me, like to know how business is going for me and stuff. So this is what I think, and this is how I think I handle this. This is not the owner's fault. To a certain extent, it's not my fault. What I do for a living is a learning experience on a daily basis. In my line of work, in my business, the day you think you've seen it all, the day you think you know it all, is the day that something like this is going to jump up and bite you in the butt. So that's just the way it goes. So I am not going to go back and charge my customer a bunch of extra money and tell them, hey, you got a Cadillac engine, it's going to cost more money, we need to fix it. No, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to eat it on this one. I'm going to get the GM Cadillac water pump I'm going to get the thermostat. I've actually already ordered them. They're being shipped in right now as we speak. I'm going to get all this back together, working correctly, and hopefully I'll be able to retain this customer, because this has kind of been a nightmare and it's taken a lot longer than we ever expected. So there you go, folks. If you have any questions on your 2001 Buick Oldsmobile Intrigue GLS, remember, that's the difference. It could be a 2001 Buick Oldsmobile Intrigue base model, and it's not going to have the 3.5 liter Northstar engine in it. It will have a different engine. But if you have the GLS, Grand Luxury Sport Sedan, then you're going to end up having a Cadillac engine in it, and you're going to run into some quirks and some things that don't make sense. Shoot me some comments, ask me some questions. I've ended up doing a lot of extensive research on this engine, and I found out all kinds of neat things about it. So, well, thanks, folks, for coming out and watching my videos. Thanks for supporting me. Stay tuned. Keep watching so you can find out the final outcome of this video, of this situation. And I think that's all I have for you. So this is Matthew, your friendly neighborhood technician, signing off.